Hi, and welcome to Geno'S Picks. I know we're back in the apartment. Joe's a busy man, and I know we went 1-3 last week when it looked like we were turning it around and we're back to 8-12 and 40%. And we actually struggled for the first time with our podcast picks last week. But still, you have to listen to the podcast. It's really catching on, and the information you get is like bonus Geno with invaluable fantasy and reality info and jokes that aren't topical by the time we get to this dispute, like this joke. Once Jerry Sandusky was sent back to general population, he was only allowed to take his wristwatch, his glasses, and his dentures. He wears dentures? What were these kids complaining about? Am I getting hot? I know. All right, so you really want to go to genospicks.com, just like it sounds, genospicks.com, each week for tons of fantasy and reality advice and all the picks for games that are coming up tomorrow. All right, so now let's get to the picks, and hopefully next week we will be back in the studio. My first pick, people. The Eagles are giving 3.5 points to the Lions at the link. Now, what happened to the Lions? Am I right, people? It's like they forgot all about how good they were in 2011, and they woke up and think it's 2010 again. Matt Stafford has thrown 3 touchdown passes all season, but the good news for the Lions fan is the Eagles have only scored 20 points, over 20 points once all season, so those 3 TD passes would be more than enough to beat them, but it's not just Stafford. The entire Lions team is off, and I think Schwartz has lost control of them. Calvin Megatron Johnson, in a radio interview this week, came out and said he basically, quote-unquote, got concussed, but went through the training with the team officials, coaches, and then went back on the field, violating NFL rules. And not only that, Ndamukong Suh basically drove away from the scene of sideswiping a car this week. So basically, it's apparent that the only people who have more trouble policing the Lions than the coaching staff are the actual police in Detroit. Meanwhile, people, Philly and Andy Reid have been making Vic carry around a football all week to keep him from fumbling like he did twice last week. And I'm telling you, I think this is going to work. Because last week, Vic knew he had faith in the plan because it's exactly what he did when he was training dogs. Instead of a football, he had them hold a poodle. Look, I'm sorry. But in his defense, it's a lot harder to try and pick up a poodle than it is a football. So really, I think this is going to go well. Look for a huge game from Shady McCoy and look for the Lions to continue to struggle. Take the Eagles and lay the 3.5. Okay. My next pick, people, the Giants are getting 6.5 from the 49ers in San Francisco. Yes, this is the game the Niners circled on their calendars the second the 2012 schedule came out. And yes, the Niners have scored 79 points over the past 2 weeks against the other 2 New York teams. Unfortunately, those are the woeful Jets and the pitiful Buffalo Bills. And yes, all week we've heard on ESPN that Alex Smith has a higher QBR, whatever that newfangled stat is, than Eli Manning. But the Giants are an actual football team from New York. And Coughlin is a great coach, which is why he's tough to beat for a while after he has a bonehead game like he did that Sunday night against the Eagles. Manning has proven he's comfortable with any set of receivers, as evidenced by the fact that his leading receivers the past 4 weeks have been Cruz, Dominic Hickson, Barden Ramsey, and Hakeem Nicks, who probably will play this week. And Ahmad Bradshaw, I know I said he stunk and then he racked up 225 yards last week against Cleveland. He's proven he's healthy, ready to go. He'll be backed up by Wilson this week because Andre Brown has a concussion. All this makes what I see as a close game, especially when you consider the fact that Alex Smith bruised his middle finger on the last play he played against the Bills Sunday. And that will make a difference, especially when you consider a guy who has no confidence in his middle finger is facing a bunch of dudes from New York who wake up every day prepared to see at least a dozen middle fingers. Yeah, we're tough here. And from people a lot more frightening than Alex Smith. So people, do the Niners win this game? It sure looks like they will, but do they blow out a consecutive team from New York by double digits? No. No way. Take the G-men and take the 6.5 points you're getting. In case you're watching at home on mute. All right. Which brings me to my lock of the week, or as I like to call it, it's the one that popped up third in the little teleprompter feed. Special kudos to Tara Kellogg for letting me use that. The Jets are giving 3.5 to the Colts in Indy. Yes, we saw the Jets Monday night, but I'm telling you, they did not impress me. They were never in control of that game, and I really have to question some of the play calls by Rex Ryan. The onside kick after the McKnight TD return shows how much he lacks confidence in his offensive unit, because rather than letting the momentum slowly build, he desperately tried to grab it all at once. It didn't work. And not to mention all these other trick plays. No one, including the Jets players themselves, will take the New York Jets seriously until they shed their gadget play attitude and the Tim Tebow circus. And speaking of a circus, it doesn't help when clowns like Terrell Owens come out this week and tweet that the Jets need him, as evidenced by the fact that they started using quarterback Antonio Cromartie as a wide receiver. Actually, I think that is the one thing Rex Ryan has done right this entire season, because if we have learned anything over the past 3 years, it's that Mark Sanchez completes the majority of his passes to cornerbacks. Ha, that's right. Maybe the other cornerback, Kyle Wilson, should play opposite Cromartie on offense. You know what? He could replace that stooge named Curly. People, I like the Colts in this one getting more than a field goal. Take the Colts and the 3.5 you're getting. Which brings me to I double your money Monday night betters. I like to call it, oh, Bolts don't let me down. Chargers are giving 1 to the Broncos in San Diego's Qualcomm. The Broncos have Peyton Manning, and the only people that should be happier about this than Denver fans are San Diego fans, because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the Chargers kind of own Peyton Manning. Anyone remember who ended Peyton and the Colts' quest for a perfect season in 2005? The Bolts, exactly. Or the team that knocked out the Colts from the playoffs the 2 years after they were defending Super Bowl champions, both time, the Bolts. And the only time, I know he was picked off 5 times earlier this year, but the only time Peyton has been picked off 6 times in his career, yup, we all remember the one-hander by Antonio from the previous joke. It's the Bolts. Maybe he sucks against the Chargers because it's karma for us never getting him. But let me tell you, Manning has thrown 12 TDs versus 16 picks in his 7 regular season games against the Chargers. And if you include the 2 playoff games we've beaten him in, Manning is not only 4-5 against San Diego, but 1-5 in the last 6 meetings. That's even more. Let me tell you something. He cannot be happy to play here. The only person that's in more of a hurry to get out of San Diego than Peyton Manning, well, that would be his brother, Eli Manning. Ryan Matthews, I've bashed forever, but I think he learned his lesson. He's ready to be the bell cow back for both fantasy and reality. Expect 24, fittingly enough, to see at least 24 touches, people. Take the Chargers in this one and lay the point. It's basically a pick 'em. I'll see you next week.